like to call the meeting of the Development Review Board order, July 21st, 2020. What do we got, Dan?
Okay. Thanks everybody for attending under these difficult circumstances, board and folks in the audience. So thank you very much. We apologize. If we're not speaking loudly enough, you just want to raise your hand, and we'll remind folks to try to project a little bit more. And again, these masks are difficult to speak through, but we'll do our best. So thank you for hanging in there. The first meeting, or the first item on our agenda this evening are the minutes from the last meeting. Is there any motions?
Motion to accept. Any changes? Charles? What's your motion?
Motion to approve.
Approve.
Second.
Second. All in favor?
The next item on our agenda is just to remind folks, if they speak tonight, that they are testifying under oath. And I will read the oath statement. I solemnly swear or affirm under the pains and penalty of perjury that the statements I make, testimony I give, and other evidence I submit to the board at the board's public hearing held on this date shall be true and correct to the best of my knowledge and belief. And we normally have people sign this, but because of COVID, we're going to just trust that you all understand that you're going to be speaking under oath, so thank you. The next item on our agenda is disclosure of ex parte communications and conflicts of interest regarding the hearing this evening. Are there any?
Any? Nope.
Okay. Our hearing, one and only hearing tonight, is a continuance of the hearing we had at the last meeting. It's the Northeastern Baptist College. They're proposing a development on Convent Avenue. They're seeking approval for a planned residential development consisting of 9 duplexes. After the meeting, the hearing last 2 weeks ago, the board did request some additional information from the applicant, which they'll be going over shortly. This is the second of at least 2 required hearings. If the board is satisfied that they have enough information to make a decision this evening, what they will likely do is go into the deliberative session to make a determination. They will then ask me to write up a written decision that all of you will get a copy of if you've spoken and given your address. If not, you can always, even if you don't want to speak this evening, you can give your name and address to Linda, and she'll make sure that I get it, and I'll make sure to send everybody who has either spoken at the 2 hearings, submitted written comments, or just requested a copy. So we will make sure that everybody who wishes to have a copy will get a copy of that written decision. Just so folks know, I know that this isn't, not everybody participates in this kind of process regularly. That decision is then appealable for 30 days to the environmental court. Once that 30-day appeal period runs, there isn't the right to appeal. And in order to appeal, you do have to either submit written comments or present some sort of evidence to the DRB. So anybody who speaks at these hearings is a potential party to any possible appeal. But I just want to make sure everybody understands that that's the process. Charlie, would it be appropriate for our applicants to introduce themselves and give us an update on what they've submitted?
Jason?
Jason Dolvich with MSK Engineering, presenting from Northeast Baptist College. To my left here is Mark Ballard, the president of Northeastern Baptist College, and Jeff Goldstone, who is the architect for the project. My apologies. So as Dan mentioned, we provided some additional information, which included an updated site plan, which includes the construction of a stockade fence along the portions of the northern portions of Convent Avenue, or the northern portion of the paved parking area where there isn't already fence. We've also proposed screening along the entire portion from the driveway to the end of the parking lot as evergreen screens or evergreen shrubs that are greater than 5 feet. And there was a request for information about refuse. There is an enclosed refuse collection area for the entire facility located at the end of the parking lot, which includes enough space for trash, recycling, and composted material. And we provided some additional information on how that is collected and managed at their other facilities. In additional In addition, we provided the grading plan, which was requested, and we also provided one set of building elevations showing their slopes. Roof slopes, thank you. I have any additional questions from the board?
Questions from the board? Charles?
How's the snow removal or plow? Which direction will that take place?
Sure, so we've indicated areas at the end, essentially at the end of the parking area for snow removal. So they will be able to go and plow essentially to the ends here. There's appropriate space within that's outside of any kind of buffer or and that's available for their piling. Yep.
Any other questions? Anyone from the audience? If you spoke last time, hello, if you spoke last time, we have it in the minutes what you spoke, so only bring up something new, we'd appreciate
Right.
it.
Right. Denise Lloyd and my property, and I questioned when you were talking about the fence, did you say you were putting up a stockade fence only where there's not an existing fence already?
That's correct. Jeff, could you speak about where we were proposing fencing?
It's rather densely planted, and I didn't want to go back onto people's properties, but I believe that, and this should be shown.
My property next door has a stockade.
Right, I believe there are two properties along here with stockade fence and one without. And we are proposing to continue the stockade fence behind the property that is currently not fenced. So that we continue with stockade fence that entire length. And then in front of that would be the evergreen shrubs.
How tall will they be?
I believe they're minimum 5 feet
yes.
when they go in, but they'll be.
Oh, so like a cedar? Because
Yeah.
I had a cedar row there when they got disease, so I had to cut it down.
Yeah, I mean, whatever we plant, we want to make it deer resistant.
But they'll be on the south
Well,
side.
they only eat from this part down.
They would be on the
That's
south
true.
side of the fence. The fence would be on the property line,
Yep.
or
So they'll be
close to
on
the property line.
the development side.
That's correct. And actually.
And my other question was about the snow removal. On the plans that I saw, it had snow removal on both sides, not just the east side. It was up on the west side.
There's a snow removal that's going to get here and here.
Right. My concern, my big concern on that, and I have pictures, this is my property, which now has the stockade fence, but you can also see the deer that are back there. There's a lot of wildlife. But the snow removal is going to be here as well as the dumpsters here. And because we have so much wildlife, I do have concern about the dumpsters and the refuse and the stuff. But also, the snow removal is going to be at the other end also. And I have water issues on my property already. Well, we all have them. But just to show you that, I know you say you're going to have some water diversion, but I already have standing water in my garden there. And you can see there's pools of standing water. And that parking lot's going to be right behind this. And when that melts and the snow storage melts and goes down, am I going to see more of this? Because this is just a standard rain that I get this pool.
So the proposed site plan includes essentially an up. We're going to be constructing a drainage swale essentially along the entire northern border here, basically to catch any of the water draining from here.
Is that like a berm kind of thing?
No, the other way. So it'll be a
Oh,
swale,
okay.
so it'll catch
The
water.
Oh, and
So
run down?
it's going to catch and direct water here. So even if we have snow storage in this location, it's not going to be backing up into your property. It's going
Is
to
that
drain
gonna-
out that way.
Is that going to attract mosquitoes?
Swale doesn't have standing water. It runs it
It'll
off.
always move, okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
And I want to apologize that we are showing drawings that you clearly can't see from where you're seated.
Well, I have prints, I did. pull them up.
I know, and unfortunately we had failure
Yeah, I
last
pulled them
week.
up and printed them
Yeah.
out. That's
Excuse
why
me.
I saw the
Hello?
snow on both sides.
Hello? Give your name for the,
Oh, all right, you should have learned. From my stockade fence, how many feet?
your name, please?
My name is
Yes.
Christine Belanger, and I live at 3 Anthony Drive.
Thank you very much.
From my stockade fence, how many feet is it until the blacktop starts? I'm the third house down, yep.
Right, so the paved driveway is behind the house here.
I can't hear you.
So this is your parcel,
Right,
so the pavement is here. So the pavement ends approximately 2/3 of the way into your property as you're heading down Anthony.
well, I have a stockade fence.
Correct.
How many feet beyond the stockade
Oh,
fence
I'm
are
sorry.
you going to
Yep.
put the parking lot?
I misunderstood your question. It's 10 feet.
And in that 10 feet, this will be a square.
Correct.
And trees.
Correct.
Any other questions? Yes?
Gary, yes, 140 Convent. Has this tax status been determined for this project?
Oh, I can answer that question. We won't know until the final use is determined. It will all depend on whether it's faculty or staff or students, and that final determination will be made by the assessor. I will tell you that tax status is irrelevant to this board. They cannot base a determination on that, but just to answer your question, I know it's a very unsatisfying, it depends, but until the makeup of the folks actually living in there and the review by our assessor, we cannot tell you the extent to which it would tax.
So the school does not now know who's going to be living there?
I can't answer that question, but
Sure, I can try to answer the question. Mark Ballard, president of Northeastern Baptist College. So it will have a mixed use of students and faculty.
Yes, go ahead.
I'm looking on here for a place, I think they call it a green space, where you have picnic tables, grills, children's play equipment, that kind of thing. Where is that?
Jeff, do you want to talk about that?
We haven't identified such a thing on the site. There's plenty of green space, and the whole site is pretty green.
But that is wetland.
yeah.
Well, I was going to identify that. This area right here, which is, I don't know the exact dimensions of that, would be a lawn, just a mowed lawn. The area behind the houses, there is currently, most of that is mowed once or twice a year, and it does go down into the wetland area behind, but that would be, playable space. I'm not sure.
And then you've got your organizing feature here in this
In the
area.
center.
It's in the center.
Yeah, so again, I'm not sure if you're referring to something I'm not aware of in particular.
I looked at it, I couldn't see it, I think they call it a green space.
So
So it's up near
the
the.
path is the central organizing feature. You've got lawn in this area.
Jason,
You've got lawn
could you
along
speak
the
up?
back.
Just
Sorry.
for the folks way over here.
Yep, sorry, pathway is along this, we have a pathway and green areas along the buildings here, and then we've got lawn in these areas in between the parking lot, and then there will be some managed lawn behind the buildings.
I have another question about the number of cars. Because you have 18 units, you will probably have 36 cars. They're 2-bedroom units, so you could actually have 72 adults and 72 cars. Probably not, but you could. So on Convent Avenue right now, this project is a 79% increase in the number of dwellings. I assume it's also going to be at least a 79% increase in the number of cars. Perhaps the town will need to think about sidewalks on that street.
Okay, I'll
Wait,
respond.
Jeff, I believe we've addressed this at the last meeting. Do you want me to respond again, or?
I guess, yes, it was addressed in the
Okay.
last meeting, but, it's a straightforward answer. So.
Sure. So the proposed parking spaces include the required spaces for this type of units. Number of units is 1.5 spaces per unit. But Mark can speak a little bit about how they manage parking at their facilities.
Sure, we do manage parking at our current facilities. So for instance, if you take our dorms right on Main Street, and so we have a certain number of parking spots that are legal parking spots there. And we keep 2 of those that are open all the time for, basically maintenance, that kind of thing. And so we handle parking on a first-come, first-served basis like most colleges do. So in other words, we have the number of spots that are there, and on a first-come, first-served basis, they can do that. We also have some parking at our library, and so if, you know, they can apply to be able to park one at the library and one car, you know, at their house, or otherwise they just got to leave it at home. And that's the way we operate. So we'll stay within the parking guidelines of the property itself. In fact, we'll have at least one and maybe two that are open for maintenance use.
Doug Sweet, 170 Common Avenue. I'm just curious, when a student goes to this college, is it 4 years, 3 years, 2 years? What is it? Pardon.
Sure, happy to answer that. We have an associate's degree and we have a bachelor's degree. So we have some students that are there for 2 years, but most of our students are 4-year students.
Okay, and these students will go all over the country, is that it?
Well, most of them sort of somewhere in the Northeast
In Northeast.
afterwards. In fact, most of them are from Vermont and serve in Vermont.
Any other questions? Yes.
Heather Raz, 139 Convent Avenue. They have 4-year degrees that they're going to be going for. And what happens after that 4 years? They're gone. They're not part of our neighborhood, our community. The care that we put into our homes in this community will not be the same. And I'm sorry, colleges are notorious for their dorms when they're not under specific eyes, being a little noisy, being a little unruly, and not exactly keeping things neat and clean. So how do we address the fact that people will be coming and going? Because they're not always going to be the same people every year. Even if they're going for a 4-year degree, they may be in a different dorm the next year. Where is the continuity that gives us the caring of a neighborhood?
Just making sure I can speak before I answer that. I think that's a great question, and I appreciate you bringing it up, because the reality is that Northeastern Baptist College cares. And our students are a different caliber of students. We don't have parties. They actually sign a code of conduct. They don't participate in anything like that while they're a student here. And so I think you're going to be pleasantly surprised at the way our students care. In fact, we have a pretty good reputation of doing that. Our students, a few summers ago, some of you will remember that over in Hoosick Falls, had some bad flooding in the middle of the summer. About half of our student body volunteered to come back from vacation and go clean up Hoosick Falls. And they did that through our disaster relief program. So I think you'll be pleasantly surprised. But the care will actually come from the college itself. And we do have strict guidelines, and we maintain them.
Thank you.
Yes, go ahead.
I have two questions actually. Number one, how secure do you feel in the fact that this is going to remain dormitories for the Northeast Baptist College and not down the road run into some difficulty and it becomes the town's real estate and then it turns into something else?
If COVID-19 has taught us anything, is we know nothing about tomorrow. But so I recognize your question. Let me help you with that a little bit though, because our specific program is not designed for online work. We do very little online work. So we are pretty confident that this is pretty much set for a long time. In addition to that, if you recognize that property, if you look at the deed, it actually has to be used by a religious organization. And so therefore, it's not like we could build these in 2 years, say, you know what, we want to sell them to somebody to come run an apartment complex. We can't even do that even if we wanted to. So that's actually part of what made that property very appealing to us. So we have no plans to use it for anything other than for what we've described.
Okay, thank you. And my other question is, in the event that your water with the runoff that they were talking about, and I've dealt with water my whole life. What is going to happen in the event that this system doesn't work? It's not enough for the water that's coming in on top of the water that's already standing there sometimes in the wet summer. Are you going to take any kind of responsibility in the event that it takes out my vegetation, that it ends up in my cellar, and I have to have somebody come in? Because, as I said at the last meeting, my parents' house has been there since 1955, and every time a new structure goes on, what is that? Where does your sister-in-law live? Eastview. Anything that goes on, it affects that side of Anthony Drive. So, are you going to fix my cellar if it floods up and I have to have Service Pro come in because the land can't absorb the water because of the blacktop and the slabs? There is going to be more water. I'm telling you from 50 years experience, there is going to be more water. I don't think you really, you are construction people, I know, but there is going to be a lot of water once you start construction. And I want to know who's going to, if, God forbid, something happens and my fence gets washed out and my perennials are gone because your plan didn't take care of the water.
Jason, can you address the stormwater concerns? Because I think people aren't appreciating the site and your plans. It would be helpful if you just, because the last time you didn't have the drainage plan, maybe you can just go over it so folks understand what you're doing.
So we can start from the fact that the hydrologic conditions or the topographic conditions of this parcel travel primarily in this direction or this direction, right? And so these buildings, while I believe we had indicated, these buildings are still higher than this area here. They're not by much, we're talking feet, 3 to 4 feet. But my primary concern was that this area here is traveling across your parcels onto this one. We're not building this up, we're not backing it up onto you. This is all constructed at grade or lower. And then what we're doing is constructing a swale to deal with the water that's running off from your parcel on and around this parcel. So we're not backing it up here. We're allowing it to run off, but we're diverting it in a manner that's going to allow for this area not to run straight across in these parking lots, but to run down. So right now, what you have is a bowl in a very flat area here. And what's going to be constructed is a conduit, not a closed conduit, but an open channel to allow for the runoff from these parcels to get out of the area.
Oh, it's going to be open?
It's going to be an open channel. That's a swale. A swale is an open channel. So it's a, so you're not, we aren't going to have an exceedance issue in that way because this is a 2-foot deep swale basically that's going to allow water to run off.
Deep is it? How wide is it?
Well, we have a full, it's a V-trap, we'll probably have a 2-foot bottom and then it's 10 feet wide, right? It basically takes up the whole area. Excuse me?
What will it be filled with?
It will be grassed. It will be a grass channel.
It will be a grass channel. There will not be any
The
rock.
trees.
You'll have shrubs along the bank. That's correct.
I have a swale around my property, but I've also got springs. I'm right across the street. And the whole backyard is springs. So I have a swale and I have water in my cellar. It doesn't always do what it's supposed to do.
Jason, will the compression of the land that results from the construction have any impact on just the fact that it can't absorb as much as it normally would? It can't perk through the compressed soil?
I mean, I'm not a hydrogeologist, but you already have, I think what everybody's acknowledging is that there's already a saturated condition in,
Right.
in this region, and we can acknowledge that, right? So, first and foremost, the area here is actually is small, right? So we actually have a low impervious area. We have a small impact of disturbance overall. In addition to the fact that, yeah, we may encounter groundwater in these regions, but we're providing a path for it to get out. That on average, if you add impervious area over natural ground, then you reduce infiltration and increase runoff, right? But in this case, that's occurring within the site because this is not upland of these dwellings. And that all of this is going to be, there's lots of space for this to get out, which is part of the reason why we're not required by state standard to have any kind of stormwater, state stormwater treatment requirements because of the fact that we created a low impact environment. Does that answer your question? A little bit? You're asking if compression of land will
Just
will
from
limit
the construction and, yeah.
Okay,
so limit the infiltration.
Okay, let me provide some context, right? So when we drive overland, right, you actually can't even test. Like when we go and do density testing on surfaces, right, you have to do that in 6 to 12-inch lifts. And the reason why you do that is because the roller, our capacity to impact soil is really limited, right? Even if you have heavy equipment, you're going to be compacting that top crust. So we're talking about when you think about this whole area as a sink, either it's already in a saturated condition, right? Meaning that if you have voids in the soil where they hold water, then they're already filled with water, right? So you're not actually really creating a change in condition on what the level of saturation is. But then if we look at that top crust and we say, okay, how many pores, how many voids are we impacting in this area? I can't quantify that for you, but it's relatively insignificant because of the fact that that crust is very thin compared to the actual area and the amount of rainfall that get in that area. Does that help?
Yeah.
I know you don't think that that's a very big development to have a big impact, but when the house on the corner of Convent and Leonard Street put on a simple addition, it was a small ranch, they put on a simple addition and a driveway. It flooded out every backyard between Leonard Street and Anthony Drive. Woods Pool, they had an in-ground pool, thank God they owned business, flooded and washed out. They had to dig down and put a pump in the bottom of the liner to pump the water out from one house, putting on an addition and a driveway. Just saying, whenever there's any development at all in a neighborhood, there's always an impact. Just displacing that much water. I mean, it's a large driveway, but it's just one person's home. Just saying.
Anyone else like to speak? What's the board's pleasure?
Yeah, across the street.
What's that?
I thought you asked a question.
Oh, just before, Charlie, I just want to note for the record, and I already gave a copy to Linda to put in the minutes, that Catherine Whitehall from Robinson Avenue did submit some comments. They're essentially the same comments we heard at this meeting and the last meeting, but I just wanted everyone to know that Karen did submit written comments and submitted them to the board, and also it'll be included in the minutes, just so everybody knows. Sorry.
What's the board's pleasure? Any more questions? Charles?
Go into deliberative session.
Motion to go into deliberative session. Do we have a second? Okay. All in favor? We're going to close the hearing, go to deliberative session, and then Dan will have an answer and update.
Thank you, folks.